Welcome back. In our last episode, we put the whole rear end of this car together to not only see what it would look like, but to check panel fitment and alignment and just everything that's important when you're doing the amount of panel replacement and fabrication that we're doing on this car. So we have some more work to do down here on this end of the valance. We had already done this end and everything's looking good, but it tends to be a little bit wide. So today's episode is going to be full of a lot of details on how exactly to tweak this panel into place. Remember that though we're working on a 70 Challenger that we call stitches, whatever you're working on, the things that you learn here can apply directly to your project. Now, let's just get into it. Let's watch the show intro and then we'll be right back. I'm Mike and this is My Car's Shop.
Working out of a 100-year-old refurbished barn, bringing 35 years of experience to projects considered beyond repair. Vision, creativity, and problem solving are essential tools in this place. Watch as we transform junk into polished metal miracles. This is My Car's Shop.
It is colder than a cold thing, and even with two furnaces running out here, I'm having a hard time keeping up with the heat today because it's about 0 with the wind chill. It's in about 20 degrees without it, but I don't understand why it's 20 degrees but it feels like 0, but it does, and it's cold. Anyway, we're going to get after this thing until I can't stand it anymore, but the main thing we want to do today is get this panel lined up. I have a lot of other things I'd like to do today if I can, but we're just going to have to see how it goes. So let's just stop talking about it and let's just do it. So just to give you a little closer view, we put the rear taillights back in, we threw the deck lid on, which obviously still has a bunch of rust and we need to fix that, and we'll get to that. We have been working on building this rear valance. This was a non-exhaust cutout rear valance that was mangled, that we straightened out, and then added our own exhaust cutouts to. Again, we're trying to just simply give it the appearance of factory. We're not caring about whether it's factory perfect. This side is not done yet because, as you see, we have a gap issue. This gap is really nice and it's fairly straight, although the further this way it comes, you can see it's kind of widening out. And then as we get over here, it's significantly wider. And that's what we need to get straightened out. So just to recap, let me remind you that the purpose, the reason we're getting all of this done right now is to get that quarter panel, which needs to be hung on the car, aligned perfectly with the rear valance so that we can get the quarter panel hung in exactly the right spot. We have spent time doing a ton of fabrication on the inner wheel well. All of that's here on the channel. And of course we have hand fabricated rear frame rails, a gas tank, trunk floor support, a quarter panel extension. We're going to be fabricating the trunk floor. We have some work to do on the A-pillar up there inside where it's rusty, and down at the bottom there where it joins into the rocker inside, we also have some rust repair to do. But we're really getting close to being able to hang this quarter panel on the car. One thing that occurred to me is I needed to check this light location on the car to make sure that it matches the one on that side, because I know there was a discrepancy. I think the panel's lined up, but it could be that that hole is punched wrong, and if it is, we will need to make a decision if we're going to move it, because we can do that, because that's the kind of stuff we do. We can move that location into the right area. So we'll be checking that out today against the other side over there, which is an unmolested quarter panel. When I was test fitting the quarter panel on the other side, if you remember that episode, I mentioned that it looked like the marker light on that side was a 1/4 inch off, and I thought it was because the quarter panel was off as far as on the car. I'm not sure it is because our point here lines up exactly right on that side, but the one thing I never checked was the dimension from here to here, because it's very possible on that cheap Sherman part that that is off. So this is 3 1/4. Let's see where this one's at. From here to here, this one is 3. Remember I said it was a 1/4 inch off? So that tells me that I have this quarter panel lined up exactly right, but this is just a really, really cheap panel, and it's off a 1/4 inch. Now the question is, do I want to move that? Because I could drop this down a 1/4 inch very easily and reflange this, or do I leave it I don't know. I'm undecided. But this is where the problem is. So, again, we're doing this car on the cheap. We're doing this because I'm using this as a fabrication project demonstration, and what you can do with this quarter panel is a $150 Sherman panel. I have one ordered up for the other side. I ordered it back in March, so it has been 10 months, 9 months, whatever that is now, and it's not in sight, I'm trying to say. So I'm not sure. The main concern that I have will be when I put the front fender on, if this light is obviously in the wrong spot. If I was doing a concourse car, I would never be using this cheap crap panel anyway, so that's irrelevant. But on this car, again, I want to be sure that it looks representative. I'm looking at a 71 Challenger over there on my wall picture, and I'm just going to go look at that closely and see exactly where this kind of lines up with the bumper and so forth. But this tells me that I do have this quarter panel in the right spot, and that this light is a 1/4 inch too high. 1/4 inch was the dimension I had put on a piece of tape here, if you remember, so that solves that mystery. So I think in the interest of curiosity, I'm not trying to have an Elvis look going on here. I'm going to take you upstairs to the poo pile of parts that I have up there, and we're going to look at the front fenders and do a dimension from that to the body line and see exactly where that is. If it's the same dimension as the passenger side, or if it's a different dimension, because that will clue me in on what I need to do. Now, if for some reason I decide that I am going to just repair this quarter panel here on the car, which I'm probably not going to, but if I can't get one, this is very fixable. I may have to move that one on that side to line up, because I think, even though you can't see it, it's going to bug me to know that the lights don't line up. But I want to know that dimension on the fender to see what that is, because if it's not even close to being the same 3 1/4 inches, then I'm not going to worry about it, because I'm replacing this quarter panel anyway, and hopefully the quarter panel that comes for this side will be to match the one over there, not here. This is what happens when you use cheap garbage. I do not want to go up there. It is going to be colder than, well, something in brass in an Antarctic storm. Let's just leave it at that. And he's climbing the stairway to car parts. Oh, I can just feel $1 million worth of heat going out right now. Okay, here we are at this one. My tapeworm out. Let's see where we're at. It's actually 3 1/2. Okay, so, but it's probably 3 1/4. Yeah, it is 3 1/4 to the body line. So if I want it to be right, I'm going to have to move that in the quarter panel. Let's see if we can fall down the stairs and kill ourselves. But at least you'll have it on video and get a good laugh. That probably only cost me about $50 in heat going out that hole up there. The other way that I will handle that is, at some point before I mess with that, I will probably put the front fender on and just see if that 1/4 inch is even that visible over that distance. It may not be, and again, for this car, I'm not going to worry about it. But those are the little things that I play with. I've certainly relocated marker lights and fenders and quarter panels before, so it's not a big deal to do it, but it's a couple hours worth of work, and if I don't have to do it, I'm not gonna, because I'm lazy. So drop it in the comments down there. What do you think? Is it gonna be noticeable? Something I should do? Something I shouldn't do? I'm curious to see what you have to say, so down there below, drop it in the comments. I'm actually kind of happy to be sitting here because I have the output of the furnace directed right at me here. So anyway, I want to measure over here and see if this is actually widening out. I'm guessing it is. This end is a little teeny bit high, which tells me that this panel is probably like this somehow. So do we need to adjust the bracket here? If I know that that over there is widening out, then that would explain all of this, and it won't be a big deal to just pick this end of it up, even if I have to modify the bracket that's right here. So that's what we're going to figure out right now. Fortunately, I have my little tape measure right here. So to the bottom of the bumper, it's about 1 inch. Yeah, that's pretty straight over there. Then we get over here, and it's a 1/4 inch. And then we get here, and it's 1.5 inches. So I need to go over there and measure from the corner of the bumper straight under the bolt, which is about 1.25 inches here, and see where that is. Just gonna do that real quick. Okay, so that's 1 inch. Well, that's interesting. So from here to here, we lose 1/4 inch. It dropped down. Gotta figure that out. Oh, I think I see it. He's hiding in the stove, eh? Okay, I think we maybe need to take this off, but I'm gonna try a few things first to just see if we can lift this up 1/4 inch and see what it does, if it mucks up our alignment over there. It looks like maybe the panel is bent in here, although if it well, yeah, I do feel a little dent in here. And this is the thing you're looking for with panels that are bent. If this panel is straight on that side and bent like this, then we're gonna have to, I don't think I can stretch that and straighten it out, so we may have to just take and cut this a little bit and just raise this end up just 1/4 inch, which wouldn't be much. That may be the easiest solution. Well, yeah, it is buckled up here, so there's a bow in there. No Luke, just a bow. Maybe an Uncle Jesse, but definitely not a Roscoe. But there's a bow in here, which tells me that this panel could very well be a little bit. Loosen this screw up here a little bit. Checking our dimension, and it's about 1.25 inches. But if I push this up, it almost goes to the inch. So let's just see if we tap on this, if maybe that's all it is. Remember, I haven't messed with this at all, so that's pretty close. Let's tighten it down and see if that's all it was. I was expecting it to be a lot more than this. Okay, we are 1/8 inch off now, so we're closer. Let's see where we go down here. Get back to 1.25 inches. So this edge is definitely, it's got to go up right here. And interesting, you notice that when I push up on this here, the whole thing comes up. This is all part of the fun. So when I push up here, it pushes that right into the inch where it needs to be. So that's a good thing. And that pushes in, and that's way out yet, but that's because this is a little bit, yeah, it's definitely mucked up there. All right, so what's going to be the easiest way to do this, I wonder? Got to ponder that for a little bit because I'm not totally sure. So I think what I'm going to do is maybe get a jack with a piece of wood and just raise that up a little bit and see if we can get that kind of bent into place. I know I have to do a little work on the brackets in behind. And the other thing, I've got to look and check these because they really do stick out a lot, and I don't know on the Challenger if they're supposed to. If you guys know, John, especially you, do these stick out past the pan? I feel like they do based on what I'm seeing here, and that this is just clearance for the bracket. But I don't know because I've not had one of these before, and I haven't worked on one in a long time. It's been 20 years since I worked on an e-body, so I've never owned one, but I've worked on them. But it's been 20 years probably. So let me know. In the meantime, I'll get online and look at some pictures, and maybe I can tell if that's supposed to be that way. One comment: I don't have the bracket tightened to the frame. I don't even know if I have a bolt in that side. So maybe it needs to be pulled in like that, but that bothers me because of the amount of twist that's going to put on that bumper. A lot. I mean, it's a lot, so I'm not crazy about that. But we'll look. So just wanted to mention that because they're not tightened up to those brackets yet. Like, that's fairly the way it is. The key issue is that that bracket, that bumperette, should be parallel to this pan, and it's close. This tends to come down, but remember, I don't have it bolted to the frame yet. So I'm gonna be okay, I think, and I may need to come in here and do a little massage just to get that to twist just a little bit differently, because it doesn't fit exactly the way I think it should, but that's just me being anal. But when I put this bracket down here in, I think it's going to pull in just fine. So from what I can tell, that's the way it's supposed to be. So that's good. Now, these things are in a little tough shape. Hopefully that's just paint on it. I am in the process of, hopefully soon, as soon as the finances are here, I'm going to order a bench polisher that looks like that grinder right there that you put buffing wheels on the end of, and polishing compounds and so forth, so that I can start polishing some of this stuff up. But not just on this car, but actually on the 69 Charger too, because a lot of work that needs to be done there. So those should clean up decently enough for this car. They're very expensive, and I have them, so what would be the point of replacing them? We're not making a concourse car here, and this will look nice just the way it is. And someday, if I want to spend $10,000 and replace them, I can. They're easy to bolt on and off. The other thing that we have to figure out is why exactly, oh, it's got a dent in it, why exactly this is over that way instead of being centered. It could be that when I tightened this down, it was that way too far. I don't really want to just tap on it and move it over because I don't want to scratch the bumper. So I'm going to get a wrench in here, hopefully, and loosen that up a little bit and see if we can get this over in position. It's all got to be, just all got to be, to get everything lined up right. So this is kind of the tediousness of alignment, to get everything exactly right so that you don't start welding things in and then put it together and everything's off. Joe commented on that on the marathon episode that we did on the 69 Charger about the front grille, the importance of having all of these pieces. I can't emphasize that enough. If you're going to build something, if you're going to weld something, put it all together before you make it permanent, because otherwise it's not going to look right, or it could possibly not look right. And if you really want to make good cars or good trucks, that's what you need to do. So after a while of fighting, that was pretty close. The whole thing was over to the passenger side about 1/4 of an inch. It's still maybe over just a little bit, but I don't think so. You can see now we're lined up pretty good there. So now we can start. What I was going to do is pushing this up a little bit here and seeing if we can get that up that little bit of an 1/8 inch that it needs. If we do, then we'll take this valance off. We have to work on getting the mounting tabs in there. We're still lining up pretty good to the quarter panel. There's some tricks to getting that to be better, but we're not at that stage yet. Right now I'm just trying to get everything roughed in. So we're getting there little by little. I don't think there's a difference right and left, but it makes me wonder if I have those switched because they're not lining up exactly to the brackets underneath. Yeah, that one, I don't know. We can figure that out later. It's not that important right now, so. Okay, so I spent a ton of time off camera. The end of this is off just a little bit because I didn't bother putting the upper bolt in, but you can see how now the bumper ret, whatever that is bolted to the frame the way it's supposed to be. It comes across nicely and pretty much matches over here. I haven't put a tape measure on it, but it was in the 16th. Again, this bumperette is bolted on. Our gap is good. It does line good up on the fender over here. One note, and I'll put a tape measure on this in a second, but I can pretty much tell by eye that it's darn close. One thing that was throwing me off was the color, because this side is in that primer, zinc etching primer green, and this was not. The color of it made it look like it was off a whole lot more than it was. Now, one note issue that I had was this hole is centered here on this, and of course the trunk hole is centered, and before that hole down here was over a bit, and so I had to really work. I got in here and messed with the brackets that are behind there and there, shoved everything over, bent the brackets around because they were mangled from whatever happened to the back of this car before. I feel like it's down a little bit right here. An easy way to fix that is to put those brackets in that this never had and just make some brackets to bolt that to. I may do that, I don't know. But I think the next step that I want to do now is get this finished up so it looks more like that. And of course I need to fix the bottom down here. Not sure if I'm going to do that today or not. It's time for me to take a lunch break. I am frozen. It's 42 degrees in here and both furnaces have never shut off. So this is not the day to be out here, but I want to get something done and I wanted to get you guys an episode. So let me ponder what I want to do next and I'll go eat some lunch and then we'll be back. Well, as the day continues to progress, the temperature in here just continues to plummet. And all I hear is dollars going out of the building. So I think in the interest of, I'm freezing and it's costing me a small fortune to heat it today because the temperature, the wind is strong and the temperature is really low. Probably going to stop there, but I do want to talk about a couple things that are very important on this project, so don't go away. I've mentioned it before, but I want to elaborate a little bit on some of this, that the difference between a fine quality restoration and an average restoration is the attention to detail. And that's really what today's episode is about. I mean, when we look at what we accomplished, is this a really exciting episode? No, it's not. But it is very educational in what it takes to get things to line up properly. The things that make and break a restoration are panel fitment. Like, I don't have this clamped in place down here right now, but getting this valance to line up perfectly with the quarter panel, it does pretty good on that side. There's tabs that we have to weld on there, a couple of other things that when I take it off here, and that's probably what's going to come next, take it off to get the finish welding done, weld the bottom on, weld the tabs on the quarter panel, the trunk extension, wherever they go. Excuse me. And all of that so that I can bolt this thing together final once and for all to be sure everything is right. It's going to make all the difference in the world. Door gaps are another thing. Let me take you over and show you a couple things there. If you look at the door gap here on this side of the Challenger, this gap is a little bit mucked up here, but that's because this door is a little bit mucked up. And that needs to be fixed if I use this door, which I probably will. But our panel fitment here, our body line is perfect. Our line here is perfect. And I lined this door up before we took the fender off, and I haven't touched it. This is one of those attentions to detail that's very important. When we were putting the frame rails in and doing all of that work, I was constantly watching these doors to make sure nothing shifted, because that would be a problem if the back of this car happened to shift. You can see that our panel fitment down here is good. It comes up, and then this isn't that the car is spread or anything, it's just that the back of this door is malformed a little bit. And quite frankly, these Mopars from the factory were pretty crappy when it came to their panel alignment. Most of the stuff that I do is much better. We'll show you a couple more examples. Remember a while ago we were working on this quarter panel edge because this was hit. And we got our door gap here looking really good. This is what makes or breaks a restoration. And again, I lined this door up when the fender was on so that that gap there was correct. Let me show you a couple things on the Foresight Duster to show you what a crappy job looks like, and I'll explain why this car's that way. Okay, so if you look at the gap down there, it's a little bit tight on the bottom, and it gets wider as it goes up. But the main thing that bugs me here is the fact that this is down 1/8 of an inch or more, probably closer to 3/16 of an inch. Take you up to the front here, and you can see that same scenario where it's very tight at the bottom and it's very loose at the top. I've checked the chassis, and it's not the chassis. What's happened, and it's evident, is that probably the door hinges, the pins are bad. That's one of the first things we have to fix before we go much further on this car. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people who will restore a car, and this is the way they leave the door gaps. And that really is bad. If you want a car to look really, really good, you got to fix all of this stuff and make those door gaps like 3/16 to 1/4 inch, whatever it is, all the way around perfectly. Mopars are notorious for having massive gaps down here at the bottom of the door. This one doesn't, But again, you can see if you look at the body line and look at the top, the whole door is down like 3/16 of an inch. Let's take it to the other side. Again, the same thing here. This door is down. It's actually not down in the front, it's just down in the back, which probably means, you know, passenger door, the hinge pins are probably not worn out. You can also see that it's not really fitting the quarter panel flush here, which means the door is too loose. You can see that is evident here. This doesn't line up, so the striker is out of adjustment. This actually up here is not too bad. A teeny bit tight there, but probably livable when we do this. If I was doing a restoration, which we're not going to, we're preserving this car, but if I was restoring this, I would do some hammer and dolly work and some grinder work in here to get this gap to be about the same all the way through. We're lined up pretty good here. The fender may be just a blonde hair low, but it's not bad. But you can see that the door gap, because it's down in the back, it's tight on the bottom, and the further up you come, the wider it gets. Now look at this car. Look at how good that door gap is. What an amazing job Joe did on that. Even all the way around down on the bottom. He kept it in the spirit of Mopar, which is a little bit wide on the front, a little bit tight in the back, but for the most part, it's just primo. The door gap in the front, again, primo. Look at that gap. Look at this gap up here on the fender. Oh, everything is just perfect. As we recently said, around between the grill and the fender was lined up. The hood's not closed properly now, so things are a little bit off, but look at that gap around there. Again, the hood's not closed properly, but just because I got the battery disconnected and I got to pull this in here, and got to have it quick because it's starting to snow. Look at the door gap on this. Same thing here. This is what makes or breaks a good restoration. Look at how straight this line is around the trunk. How everything lines up just perfect. This is what makes or breaks a restoration. That and flat, shiny paintwork make all the difference in a mediocre car to a great car. This is the stuff that makes the difference, and I wouldn't be doing you justice and teaching you how I do these cars without taking the time to show you the ad nauseum tedium of what it takes just to get something like this rear valance pan aligned, and especially when we're doing all the fabricating. I kind of psyched myself out, as I said, because I didn't have this part of the top painted green, and it was creating an optical illusion. I kept measuring it, and it was measuring pretty close, but I would look at it, and it would look off, and finally it dawned on me, oh, shoot it with the green. And I shot it with the green, and all of a sudden, it made a difference. So I want to take this further. I want to take it and get this rear pan finished on that side, cut that bottom off like we did on this side. Got to get the tabs welded on the car, as I said, and on the valance, and get it fit one more time. We won't do final fitment on it until we have the quarter panel actually hung, which is going to be way down the road. I mean, the quarter panel is going to be hung soon, and we'll use the valance to help partially align the quarter panel, but we'll do final fitment where we actually block sand around, put a small skim coat of tiger hair on there, and block sand all the way around until it's almost completely gone, virtually gone. And those panels will line perfectly, and it'll look really good. And this is the way you build a show quality car. So I appreciate you sticking around through this stuff like this. I know I try to give you, episodes that are really fun and exciting and big progress, but sometimes the work that has to be done is just the way it is. And as I said today, it is just so cold in here. I've got to quit. I wanted to get more done, but I just can't. I can't keep working. My hands are freezing. Both furnaces are running, and I know I'm repeating myself. Have I mentioned how much I'm repeating myself? Well, I tend to do that. If I haven't told you before, I tend to repeat myself. The irony of this is I really love the finished product when everything is, I won't say perfect, but really good. I am not a detail person at all. I really am not. I'm an 80% is good enough kind of guy. And I have to discipline myself to do this stuff the way it needs to be done because I know the difference it makes in the finished product. So I can't emphasize that enough. If you're tending to want to cut corners and say good enough, probably time to just walk away, give yourself some perspective, and then come back and look at it again and say, can I really live with that? Because when you paint a car, you're going to have, probably in this day and age, depending on the color, let's just say black, this car is going to be, you're going to have $1,500 just in paint materials. That doesn't include all of the other primers and all that stuff. When I did the little Pontiac Solstice here, 1 pint of the yellow base coat, just the base coat, was over $300. Now that's yellow. Yellow's an expensive color, but paint costs are through the roof. I think we had over $1,000 in paint and clear coat, and base coat and clear coat on Joe's Charger. I'm sure this is going to be even more than that because of the way the price of this stuff has gone up. So my point is, when you're going to go to all that work and spend that kind of money to put paint on a car, do you really want to get done with it and go, man, I wished I had redone that, or I wished I had taken the time? No, you don't. These details really matter. And the good news is you can do all this work yourself. It doesn't matter what you're working on. I'll even take you through how to spray paint eventually. And I paint right here in this building. So, there's episodes on here where I'm actually doing painting on the 47 Ford about a year ago. You can see me spraying the fenders on that car. I've got the grill and the front bumperette to paint yet. I'll be doing that once the weather warms up a little bit. We'll build a little temporary paint booth, but the Charger was painted right here on this side of the building. So you don't have to have a paint booth. There's just certain things you need to know to turn out a pretty darn good paint job. I know that some of my friends that work in body shops will say that some of the work we've turned out of this building and other buildings I've worked in is as good or better than what guys that do this professionally can turn out in a paint booth. And I'm not bragging on how wonderful I am, because I'm not that great of a painter. I just know the tricks. I know what to do, that you don't have to have a perfect environment to turn out a really good quality product. I want to get this quarter panel stripped and get it in some kind of color other than this patina, whatever this is, rusty, purpley, whitey garbage. So that's coming, and on a little bit warmer day for sure. And get this back end finished up. So hopefully in the next couple of days the temperature's going to back up to in the high 20s or low 30s, and we'll be able to do that. More coming on the Oakland, of course. I've got a bunch of stuff coming for the Duster. The next step on the Forsyth Duster is going to be cutting the floor out before we put the torsion bar cross member in, which means several things have to happen. Number one, I've got to take time to get those doors lined up for the very reasons that we just talked about. Be sure that car doesn't twist or move. Your doors are your indicator for that. I've got my 4-foot jack stands ready to go. My buddy's bringing over some box tubing so we can put that car up on some bracing with those jack stands and get it up, so high off the floor so we can work on it. So there's a lot more coming on that, but there's a lot of thinking through that I'm doing on that project because it's the early stages. That often happens for me. And when we got that car here back in July, and I spend a lot of time looking at it, thinking, looking, thinking, planning, plotting, thinking, looking, planning, plotting, thinking. Did I mention that I do a lot of thinking? I'm not very good at it. It really hurts, but I'm a very fast thinker if you give me lots of time. So there's that. Anyway, we're planning that. Going to be ordering the floor pan for that car, but we need to cut the floor out to get the inner rockers dealt with, and then we'll put the torsion bar cross member and the floor in all at once. So there'll be big progress on that car pretty fast once we get things torn down. But we got to get things braced up and just think that through and get that car leveled out where exactly where we want. I think that's going to do it. I'm froze, and we're hitting 40 degrees, and that's it. So time to quit for the day, get the Charger back in before the snow starts coming worse, and get on with the rest of the day. I appreciate you being here. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram /MyCarShop. Lots of great discussion going on over in our My Car Shop forum on Facebook. And also a lot of good tech tips and things and tools and stuff being shared in our metalworking and fabrication group, or is it fabricating and metalwork? You can find us over there on Facebook. Just search fabrication and metalwork. It'll say My Car Shop, blah, blah, blah. That's more of an in-depth discussion than we do on a standard Facebook page. So lots going on. We're here for you. Ask your questions. There's some interesting things coming. Guys were asking me if I'm going to the no-name drags. I'm not sure yet at this point. Becky's encouraging me to go. August is a really bad month for me with activity and expenses, so I'm not sure I'm going to be able to pull it off, but if she has her way, we'll be there. But obviously we need to make a wise decision in that, just financially and time-wise. So we'll let you know when we make a decision if that's going to happen. All right, that'll do it. I think we're forgetting something.